In the previous video, I showed you how to program a Gotek drive with Flash Floppy firmware for the Amiga. In this video, I will show you how I install hardware additions to the Gotek drive. For this, we will need a Gotek drive programmed with Flash Floppy, a piezo speaker, an OLED display, 0.91 inch 28 by 32 resolution, a rotary encoder, and an assortment of jumper wire, also known as breadboard jumpers. The ends need to have female connectors. Okay, so here we have an image of the Gotek board, and we're going to go through the modifications, the mods that we'll be doing to it. Keep in mind for the video, we're missing the two pins for the rotary encoder, so part of the video will be soldering those on. Oddly, this board that I received did have those pins. The one I subsequently received did not. Same seller, same board, just a couple weeks apart maybe. Don't understand it. Anyway, so let's bring up a picture of the rear header pins that I drew. We see that the DF1 jumper, which is by default enabled, but that's moved over to DF0 if you're going to use it as the first drive of your Amiga. And then we have the speaker, and I'll talk about the polarity of the speaker during the video. And then we have the eject switch and enter switch, which is part of the rotary encoder, because the rotary encoder includes a push button functionality. And it's important to know which one is the ground pin, so that's the lower one. We will bring up the OLED display next. Okay. So here we have the OLED display, and the way to do this, as I'll again demonstrate, is you remove the LED display, the 7-segment LED display, and you take the pins out and you rotate them 90 degrees, stick them back in, and then plug them into the back of the OLED display with the first set, this red and black wire, flipped, and the other set for the signal wires straight through. Now, the next one we have is, what's this? Oh yeah, so here's the description of the pins. The RE pins are for the rotary encoder. I don't actually know what they're called. I just called them RE for that purpose. So let's get rid of the OLED screen and put up the rotary encoder. Okay. So, the clock and the DT are what connect to the RE pins, and the ground is joined. The right side of this diagram indicates 3 pins, which is actually the rotary portion, the rotary pulsation portion of the rotary encoder, and the left side here is the push button switch contact. So you do need a ground on both sides, so you just join the two, where these two black wires are, you join them and connect them up to the ground pin of the eject switch contacts, and then the other one on the left goes up to the normally open other terminal for the eject switch, and obviously the clock and the DT on the right hand side go to the RE pins. And it says, as it says here, you may have to swap the RE connections, flip-flop them if the rotary encoder scrolls the wrong way. I don't really know of a good way to always ensure that it's in the right direction, but it's not a big deal to fix it if you do, as long as you aren't soldered together, as long as you have some removable pins. Alrighty, so here's our Gotek from the previous video that we've loaded with Flash Floppy firmware. Here's an assortment, collection of piezo speakers. Here is a couple of OLED displays, 0.91 inch. Here are some rotary encoders, and here is some miscellaneous jumper wire. We're going to get started with the piezo speakers. Okay, first thing we're going to do is get our soldering iron ready. And we are simply going to solder jumpers onto the speaker. You just need a couple of these. You want female on one side and bare wires on the other to go into that. Okay. Just going to tin these guys. I have a small PC fan that I just attached to a 12-volt DC wall wart, and I use that to push the fumes of soldering away. Okay, so now that I've got that done, I'm going to trim a little bit off. Now, there's something really important that I did not see covered on any previous Gotek videos, and that is the fact that people have made reference to there not being an importance of polarity for the piezo speaker. However, some piezo speakers, such as this kind, which is kind of the first one that shows up when you search for it in Amazon, has polarity. There is one side that is a positive and one that's a negative. And I've come to find out that the Gotek also has polarity. So we're going to keep track of the polarity of this. We're not going to not care about it. And I'm going to put red on positive and orange on negative. Okay, so the speaker goes on the connectors labeled JB, B as in boy, which is actually the very center connector. And as we're facing this, where the pins are away from us, the positive is the top. So I'm going to put the cable like this in here. And that is it. That's our first mod. Forget to take this off. And then we would just simply, maybe throw this inside the Gotek, or, this doesn't have to necessarily be attached to something other than maybe you want to keep the pins from getting shorted against something or from the thing rattling around, but you could glue it wherever there's room for it. Doesn't matter. But it doesn't need any sort of base like the flat ones do to amplify. It just has its own chamber. Okay. I'm using my phone to record this so I can get really close to the microphone and pick it up. That's it. Okay, now that we have that mod done and working, we are going to do our second mod, which is adding an OLED screen into the Gotek. I'm sure you can imagine that the speakers, I mean, being available a half a dozen or more in each package, they're going to be pretty cheap, and they are. And as it turns out, the OLED screens, buy 2 of them for 10 bucks. At least that's the price that it was when I went to go look for it. I have this sheet, cheat sheet that I made that tells me where all the mods go. It's available on my website, retrofriends.com. Click the Amiga link. So what we're going to do is, you can actually use the same, this doesn't require any tools, this mod, unless you consider that you have to widen the hole for the display because the OLED screen is wider. So, and as it turns out, this thing, these actually come with a bunch of jumpers, enough to connect the 2 OLEDs. So let's just set that aside because we're actually not going to need that. This thing is ready to go. It's got the pins on there. It just needs to be mated correctly to this. And to do that, we need to actually redo the way these pins are put into the Gotek. So I'm going to orient this. I have my picture. I'm just going to orient everything. It's good to print stuff out sometimes, or at least have a tablet sitting by. Okay, so this isn't, we're going to want to pull these pins out of the Gotek and rotate them by 90 degrees. And then from there, actually what I like to do is I like to, that's interesting. You know what? The last Gotek I bought had these last 2, there's only 4 pins soldered in here. These last 2 we're actually going to need to add for the rotary encoder. I just noticed that. Okay, so basically what we're talking about is we're talking about power is on the left and signal is on the right. So the top right is SDA, and it actually says SDA right here on this. So I got yellow there. And the bottom right is SCL. So I'm going to take this and plug it right in to those top pins. The way this display is oriented is the pins are on the left. So SDA is on top, SCL is right below it, and that pretty much goes straight through from the right hand side connector. This is not exactly the same. The +5 is on the bottom and the ground is on the top. So I'm going to go ahead and use yellow as the +5. Plug it in there. And then the VCC is actually the second from the top. So in this case, we're twisting this one twist so that yellow is on the bottom here, but it's on the top over here. The best part about the Flash Floppy software is the fact that it natively supports this stuff, so I don't need to do anything else. I'm actually done with this mod. I'm going to go ahead and put this in here just to hold it. And then we are going to demo this OLED screen. Okay, here we have the OLED screen. We're plugged into the Amiga. Let's turn it on. And we know we're working because we get the Flash Floppy symbol, and NARC happens to be our first randomly selected. Somehow Flash Floppy selects particular images in order. This is formatted in native mode. In other words, all I do is copy disk images to the thumb drive, and then that was it. I didn't do any modification or whatever. So here's the great part though. I can push up and down and scroll through the other items on the disk. And if it goes longer than the display, it scrolls, which is nice. And then if there are no more files, it loops around to the beginning. But I can go back and forth using these buttons, of course. And this is the single most important upgrade to make this Gotek easy to use. Because now I don't have to write anything down. I don't have to have a list. I can just throw things on a thumb drive, stick them in here, and find them with the navigation keys. Okay, we're back on the bench, and I guess I want to remove the Gotek, and I want to have the LCD or the OLED screen separate, so I can just have the shell and the screen together. So I'm going to do something that I've done very often. It's a pretty good idea. I am going to make it so that it's easy for me to figure out what the orientation of these are, and I'm going to do it by gluing them together. So I'm going to apply some super glue, otherwise known as CA glue. Very little bit, tiniest of drops. And then I'm going to get a piece of tape for two reasons: to hold it while it's gluing, and I'm going to leave it on there so that I know which way's up. Paint pen would probably be more ideal. You know what? I should stick this on here for gluing. Come on, get on there. And yeah, I guess the blue tape wasn't necessary for holding it, but I'm certainly going to use it to signify what is up. You know, and just to make sure I didn't close anything up, I'm just going to make sure that I didn't mix things up, especially on power, as long as I got the power. So SDA, top to top, and then SCL right below it. And then power is on the very bottom, and it gets flipped over. Okay, so I think we're good. It's probably dry already. Come on, there we go. All right, let's take the Gotek out. So we're safe. Okay. We're going to want to stick this as far into the corner as we can. Give you a more closer look as to what we're talking about. Light in here. Okay, yeah, so the pins, the other side of these jumper pins, which are through hole, are coming right through, and they will prevent me from getting this completely recessed into this hole. So this thing's going to sit behind this hole no matter what, but I think that'll be all right. But I do want to get it as close as I can. So there's a couple of rails here, and I'd really like to trim those down until this thing is flush. So yeah, I think I can do that with a hobby knife. Be a little hard to get into that corner, but I guess I don't have to get all the way down. Trial and error. Well, I'm almost there already. You know, these pins actually stick out farther than the display. And I think it might be super easy to rectify that situation. Yeah, they stick out farther. So I'm going to clip them off. Easy peasy. Okay. Might have gone a little too far there. I don't know. That's pretty good. Let's go down the other side. Geez, I sure would like to do something about that. I think I'm going to file this down some more. Okay. Right about there. I'm going to put some tape over the display to protect it. If you don't have blue painter's tape at home, then what is wrong with you? I use it for everything. Okay. Because I cut these off with side cutters, you know, they have a sharp edge that can easily be brought down. But I'm just trying to make sure that I don't get the file onto the board and mess up the traces. And obviously the blue tape is protecting the screen for me. So a couple of different ways I can do this, but I think this is the easiest. Sorry if it gets blurry. I'm basically behind the camera doing this. Okay, let's check this out. Okay. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh. There went the protective film over the screen. We'll be careful. It's made of glass, fairly durable, but yeah, I think that's as good as we're gonna get. So you can kind of see that there's a lip, but you know, it's all right. Let's get this lined up and make sure. Yeah, what the heck. So I definitely don't need to move or modify the left side of this hole. I mean, we're like a 1/2 millimeter away from that. I can actually see the edge, so yeah, that's going to be fine. But we're going to need to open this slot, this hole, display hole, a little bit more. You know, basically to somewhere around here. I'm just scoring it with the knife. I'm actually scoring it just a few millimeters short to give myself some wiggle room. Okay, all right, so I could use a rotary tool for this, but I'd like to use the knife and go slowly with it because I'd like the final product to be nice. So always start by cutting shorter amounts of plastic, and you can score this in this direction. I'm not sure if that's coming out, so I can score, you know, put some pressure and score in this direction and then cut a piece. I'll show you. I've been doing this since I was a kid, very young. So I'm scoring right now, and I didn't go all the way up against the edge. And then I'm going to slice up to the score. I overshot it a little bit. That's kind of what you want to avoid. So scoring in this direction, slicing in this direction. I think that, folks, is as close as we're going to get it. Okay, now I like to hot melt glue things in because you can remove it if you throw some alcohol on it, or sometimes you can just yank it off. But it's not completely permanent like epoxy or super glue or whatever. It has a nice gap filling property, so I'm going to heat up the glue gun and I'll show you putting it in. Okie doke. I guess maybe I'll use some of my magical glue tape to hold it in place. I put a dab in one small spot. Yeah, maybe in the corner. Let's see. See the hole. Maybe put a piece of tape to hold the wires or something. Where they go. That's way off. Boy, I'd be real annoyed with myself if this came out crooked. Okay, so I can sort of see some. No, I think that's pretty good right there. I'm gonna tack it. Let's see, that corner back here. And opposite up here maybe. You gotta be careful because otherwise the lid won't fit on here anymore. Here's what I do. I lick my finger and quickly press before I get burnt. And this needs to definitely get pushed down because I know I have to contend with the clearance of the top case. So I really can't put that much up top. Let's see. Just shove this already almost dry portion kind of eyeballing it. And I got no room to put any over here. No. Looky looky. I need to get rid of this. Or not. I'll get this thing situated and then see. It might actually be in the right position to hold my screen. I think it is actually. I think this might be thicker. This is the one that came out of there. It doesn't look thicker. Anyway, so I think we're dry enough now where we can put more glue. Put another glob down here. Is that in focus? That's good. Okay. Oh, and also another thing you need to check clearances on is this. So we're good. I just don't want to go past the OLED circuit board. Otherwise that won't fit in. So I'm going to stop short, going all the way to the end. Just bigger glob on this time. Lick a finger, push briefly. Oops, see, I should have licked my finger again. You have to lick your finger each time. And only hold your finger on there for for a fraction of a second, otherwise it's hot enough to give you a little burn. There's actually another thing that, as long as you're careful, don't try this at home, disclaimer, blah blah blah. It cools the outside and it causes it to dry a little faster as well. Okay, so this, we just have to add just a tiny dab. And then we of course have a mess. I licked my fingernail this time. Pushing it. I actually moved the whole thing a little bit. That is all. Because this is still wet down here. And this really isn't holding anything. So yeah. Let's check this thing out real quick. What it's catching on is the connectors. But otherwise, it kind of looks to me like it'll go behind. So, just need to trim the side off of this. There we go. Looky there, kids. It looks like the whole thing moved down a little bit. But I don't know. It's probably fine. It's not, I can see, oh no, I can't see daylight through there. I can't see my finger. No, I think it's actually really good. I'd like to get a little dab up here this time. Last time when I did this one, I sort of swept it this way and created a mess. I'm gonna sweep it that way in hopes that there's a little less of a mess. Yeah. Again, lick my fingernail and again, lick my fingernail. Yep. Okay, just need to let that dry. Okay, I'm going to reassemble this thing just for demonstration purposes. We're going to assume that the display still works. The piece of tape I put on here fell off, but I know the bottom right is VCC, and that's the second up, so much for marking it. I should get me a white paint pen. I don't have one. Paint pen. Okay. This is nice because it has two posts, so I can test fit knowing exactly where it is. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm just test fitting this, making sure that we are good to go. And sure enough, we are good to go. Okay, now we're going to install the rotary encoder. Okay, so we have the OLED screen mounted in there just fine. We're going to jump right to installing the rotary encoder. It's kind of unique about this board I mentioned earlier, possibly, that it's actually missing the pins for the rotary encoder. There are 3 pins required. These 2 and a ground. Yeah, let me just look at this paper here. A feature of the rotary encoder is that most of them have a push button and a separate contact for the push button. So let's just take a look. And if we hook that together with ground, we can wire it into this JA header, and that makes this even more usable because you can push on the rotary encoder and it activates a switch. And there actually is a feature of the Flash Floppy where it's like an eject and an insert button. So you can press it once to eject it and then select another file and then press it again to insert it. That's nice. Now these rotary encoders came from Amazon. There's a link in the description. They come with hardware to mount them, a nut and a washer, and also they come with these knobs, which these knobs are kind of odd because they have a index mark on them. And rotary encoders, if you know anything about them, they don't really have a high and a low setting or any stops at all. They're usually for the specific purpose of activating a digital control somewhere else, and that other control usually displays the limits rather than the knob itself. So this is basically a useless little mark on here. Odd to have a rotary encoder that came with that. So we'll probably put this over here, and we need to wire it into this header right here, which is missing. It's jumpers and or pins, and I don't really recommend, if you don't already have these right-angled pins, to go buy them because you only need 2 for this job. I think probably the best idea would be to take, obviously you can't put vertical ones in because if you do that, this case will not fit on top. It'll stick up too high. So if you don't have these right angle pins, I recommend that you go ahead and just solder your wires right onto those. So the trouble is that whether we're putting soldering wires on there or using these jumper pins, those holes are actually filled in. So if you have a solder removal tool, I recommend you clear those holes. If you don't, then it's going to be a little more difficult. Probably be faced with doing a back and forth thing, all the while watching out not to burn yourself on this, which is going to get very hot. Yeah. Okay, well, let's come up with a game plan. Okay, so here's the end result. Again, yeah, my my pins are not exactly the same dimensions as the existing ones, so there was no way I was going to get it to line up. Actually consider that, but I got them both in there. I kind of glued them together. I made sure I put solder on both this side, and I added some solder on this side too. And it looks pretty good. I think I'm good. If I go ahead and sink this all the way down, this knob is going to stick out a little bit. I'd rather have it a little more flush, but that's simply a matter of putting more washers on the post here. Although the one thing is I do need to have it sticking out at least enough to put the nut on. The nut is a low profile nut, but it's still going to cause it to stick out that much. Anyway, that's easy to sort out. Alright, so I think what I'm going to do now is get me a hole. I sort of want to be precise. Sometimes it's best to drill a smaller hole. Try to get a pretty precise placement. Hand drill is great for doing precision work. Have much more control. It's pretty much going to cover up the Gotek label, I'm afraid. Well, depending. Yeah. Okay, so just gonna have to eyeball it. I can pretty much have this all the way down and sort of put it in the middle. See, if you have it there, it's here. Still have OK access. Not that we would probably even need to use these buttons anymore. In fact, they could be eliminated once this encoder's in here, but why bother? I'm just going to leave them. It doesn't adversely affect the looks or the performance. I think I'm good right here. Oh, this is nice and soft plastic. It's not going to take me very long at all. There it is. So, there's a slot in the shaft here. I'm going to stick the drill bit right into it, and I think that's going to be fine. Alright, so I just need to get a larger drill bit. Okay. So, here's our hole. So with the knob on there, it's actually just perfect. It actually doesn't cover up the Gotek label at all. Wouldn't have been a big deal if it did. A little bit. Anyway, so let's go ahead and put this in here where it goes and cut us some length of wire to be used. So we're going to take some of these. Now these actually came with OLED display. We didn't even need them because we reused the ones from the Gotek. So, I mean, I didn't even need to buy extra jumper wire for this purpose. But it looks like it'd be just right if we cut these in half. I think. Yeah. Let's do that. And so one of these is going to be jumped over as a ground, and you can just use that one. I like these style wire strippers. They give you the added benefit of being able to strip a section from the middle of the wire without removing the rest of it very easily. removing the center section. So I'm going to give that a shot right now. And then I'm going to do a little piece off the end. Look at that. That's exactly what we need. It's probably a little long, actually. No, it's just right. And then the purple, we will jump off to be its mate right next to it. And then these other two are going to go to the outside pins there. So this one gets cut short and stripped. These ones will remain long. They will be stripped. We're going to tin everything. See how we're doing in frame here. Maybe I could go like that so you can see it a little better. Okay. Tin the wires. And oh yeah, this is accepting solder really easy. There's no need for flux on this thing. Yanked all the solder off my iron actually. Okay. Add some more solder. I guess we'll do this ground one first. I guess I could get a little fancy and actually put it in the right direction. Maybe bend the pin in a little bit. Oh wow. The pin is flexible. I bend it and it just bends right back. I think tweezers are called for. Oh, there we go. Just a little bit extra solder to glob on there. Oh. So there is a little clip here. And this goes back to volume control knobs from, back in the day. They always had a little key, a little peg on them so that they would not rotate in their mounting. Because if you just have a hole, the thing could possibly rotate if the screw gets loose, or even if it's not loose, if there's some sort of tension on it. So all you got to do is drill a little hole to the side, and obviously picking the right side is crucial. So let's do this, and I want it this way. The notch is over here, so I'm just going to drill a hole here, and I'm going to go ahead and eyeball this. If I'm off, then the rear of this is rotated a little bit. But fortunately, I gave myself enough room by not bottoming out on the bottom of the case. Plus, the hole has a little bit of play in it. So I'm going to look at it from the top and line my drill bit up right there, and then go and look at it from the side, this side, and place it where it needs to go, which is right there. And then I'm going to start drilling. You see that? The last one of these I didn't bother with this. I may not wind up using this hole anyway, because the reason why I didn't bother with drilling this hole last time is I wanted it sunk down into the... I didn't want it to stick out too far. But if you... for demonstration purposes, I'm showing you how you can do this. That hole is not quite big enough. That's by design, in case I need to make adjustments. A little bit of flashing here. So here's the Gotek, and there's the hole next to the thing, and the pin doesn't fit in there yet. But that's pretty easy solution. It's exactly where I want it. I've tested that. So I'm just going to bend the drill bit down and bend it up while drilling, just to widen the hole up. Now we have more of an oval shape, and we might fit in there just as is. I can see it in there, but it doesn't quite fit. So I'm just going to continue the modification here. Another thing you can do is put the drill bit in and use it as a saw. It's not a very effective saw unless you're doing a small area like this. Okay. And I think we got it. Yep. Just as they say on the golf course, it's in the hole. Is it in the hole? Yeah, it's a little wobbly. I want to test fit everything here real quick. I apologize if any of this stuff is out of focus. Actually, you know what? I can go ahead and zoom out. Alright, we're zoomed out. I'm just gonna do a little test fit here. That's not going anywhere. Okay, Okay. Sorry, I guess maybe part of that you couldn't see. Like, okay, so look at that terrible hole I made. Hopefully the knob covers it. Get it nice and snug. I really don't see this thing coming loose. So that's going to go right there. Not bad. I could put the washer on the other side, but I'm pretty satisfied with it. I've messed with it enough anyway. Alright, so using my cheat sheet, the ground, the combined ground is going to go JA on the nearer of the two jumpers, and that was gray. So, can you see that? JA is right here, so that's going right there, and the purple is the other contact. This is again the eject insert switch. This is what's going to occur when the rotary encoder is pushed in as a select button, you might say. These two buttons are forward and backward. I don't know if I mentioned this, but this thing, one of the mods is just to put a third button on there for eject and insert, but this will be our third button. And the turning of the rotary encoder will replace the incrementing up and down of these two buttons. Okay, so now in regards to the remaining two cables, oh, by the way, we need to, this might be an issue as far as getting the transition of these wires out of the case. And it looks okay. Yeah, there's a little bit of a space for the wires to come out. Good. Alright. So, there's no trick to this. It's going to be trial and error. I'm going to plug these in a certain way, and if the rotary encoder goes the wrong way, I'm going to reverse them. It's going to be that easy. And so, oof. Oh boy, that's a tight one. There we go. Okay, and again, we're just going to make sure that if we just worry about where the positive, the VCC is. The VCC is this bottom one, which I have as yellow, and it is going over to the second from the bottom, which is where it should go. Second from the bottom. I don't believe there's any other. Yeah. And as long as one of them's lined up, they're all lined up. Okay, well that's it. So let's go try it on the Amiga. Yeah, you gotta make sure this is clearing the pins, programming pins. Yeah. Fancy. Alright, let's give it a try. Okay. Just power up the Amiga 500. Everything's still working. You know what's cool? When there's no disk in there, you hear the clicking. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's clicking like a normal Amiga drive without a disk. Alright, let's put this in here. Okay, it's already starting to load an arc. But I'm going to push this button, and it says ejected. And then I'm going to scroll. Hey, what do you know? I got it right the first time. So now I'm scrolling through the names. I'm going to get a closer shot of it. scrolling through, going up, going down, and then when I'm ready, yeah, you know what? The weird part about this is it automatically inserts it after a while. 5 seconds maybe? I don't know. It's not doing it now, but if I scroll, yeah, it automatically inserted it even though I was quote-unquote rejected. So anyway, it's still very usable. That's the only drawback. Okay, well, test was good. I think I have everything lined up good. Time to put the screws back in. So let's see how well this goes on here. What I noticed before is that this thing's kind of difficult because it's turning when you're trying to put it on. Trying to line it up with the teeth and you don't know where they are. Okay, that must be it. Ooh, look at that. Yeah, it covers. You don't want it any further than that. What do you think? Pretty good, right?